And now, we're back to the Bible in 90 days. Hey everyone, I want to say welcome again to the Bible in 90 Day Challenge. I'm so thankful and encouraged by all of you who have taken part in this challenge, and I hope that you will be encouraged by it. By now you've probably realized that the Bible won't read itself. You have to make time to read it. So I want to encourage all of you to take time in your day throughout your weeks to just think about how you can improve your reading strategy. Should I wake up a little bit earlier? Should I do it a little bit late? And just reflect on that, and I think it'll go a lot smoother on how you'll get through your reading for the day. So I want to say I'm just so excited. We're on day 4 right now. I'm about to finish Genesis today after I finish my reading, and I'm so excited about that because I've never been able to finish Genesis in just 4 days and still grasp everything. So that is just such a great feat for me, myself, anyway. So I want you guys to be encouraged that while we're reading the Bible, we're also studying it. I spoke with someone recently who told me they wouldn't want to do the reading in 90 days because they have to study, and this is a reading, not a study. Very not true. Very not true. While we're reading the Bible, we're studying it. The depth of how much we're studying it may differ from some, but it's still a study of the Bible. So keep that in mind, that I can ask anyone who's been keeping up with the reading, say, hey, what has happened at such and such and why? And I'm sure they'll be able to answer me. Why? Because it's a study, and those are the things that you gain from a study. Why did this happen? And it's in the memory. So it is a study, so I want to encourage you, don't take it lightly. Questions? Alright, so we're in day 4 of the reading. What I would like everyone to do now is go to the document I posted in the file section of the page, labeled week 1. There's only 2 documents. One is the bookmark with each day's reading plan, and week 1 document which has some questions and a brief overview of the chapters. So what I would like is for 10 people to choose one question. 10 people, one person choose one question from this document and post it on the page, and then also respond to it. Now be sure to put the number of the question that you choose, and then everyone else to comment on that post on the page. And this is a big part of the accountability in our reading. Are we comprehending? Are we getting something? Is there any question? If everyone can respond to one question, one comment that's coming out of the document I posted earlier this week or late last week, respond on it one time, at least one time, and we'll try to do this before the end of the week. And once the week is over, of course, we'll move on to week 2's reading, and then we'll do the same thing at the end of the week. And this is really the interaction part. You know, how can you encourage somebody? What did you learn? What was confusing to you? And this is all to help make it stick in and to be practical to each one of us. So go to the document, post a question on the page, respond to it, and then everyone else take a turn responding, and share your thoughts and comments with us. So, in your day 1 reading, in the start of the reading, we start with Genesis, our first chapter, the first book of the Bible. And the events in Genesis lead to the remaining books of the Bible. Reflect back on how it first started with creation. God created, God created, God created. And in the end, it was good. Genesis is a story. It's a story of the beginning of God's presence with us. The first chapter is such a lovely book because it really describes the character of God. Look at all the things that was done through God, and just imagine what that means to Him. How do we define God? How do we view God if he done all this? Now, this was stage 1. You know, there was God, there was man, there was paradise, a place called Eden, and nothing else was needed. Everything was in the states of perfection, if I may say. Nothing else was needed but obedience. And of course, there was a fall. So we get to chapter 3, when Adam and Eve disobeyed God's command and they were driven from His presence. God created us to be with Him. That's what it was meant to be. And when Adam and Eve left the garden, so much more was lost in just the fruits, the trees, being there and enjoying whatever produce the land, the area had at that time. But they lost God's presence. They lost God's relationship. And this separated us from Him. And this starts the story of how God would reconcile us to Himself after the separation. So as we continue in our reading, we'll see a couple of the main things that jumps out is sin, blessing, of course sin, the fall of men, what caused the separation, and it was them being disobedient. So now sin is in the world. The story continues, and as the story goes on, we can see sin escalating. At first it started here with a disobedient, eating the fruit, to where Cain killed Abel, people are lying, deceitful, homosexuality, and it just grows on. But it gets to one point where it was too much. The world had become so evil, so corrupt, that God destroyed the whole world with a flood, and only saved Noah and his family because of the righteousness they had. But even after the flood, even after this semi-new creation, after this semi-new birth, men still continue to sin, but still continue to be disobedient because of this separation from the presence of God. The second thing is we can also see the blessings of God that He gave us. In the first chapter, He said God blessed them, and He blessed them, and He says be fruitful and multiply. And of course we see these blessings taking place in the genealogy, in generations coming, but always in the genealogy in generations coming from Adam all the way on, is they lived so many years and then they died. Commonly they lived and then they died. Why? Sin was still in the world. We were still separated from God. So God is working now to bring us back to His presence, to mend this broken relationship. As the story continues, sin is in the world, and because of this, people have lost the right perspective of who God is. We see this in Genesis in chapter 3. Adam and Eve hidden themselves from God. You know, they're hiding from God. Cain speaking to God like God did not know his heart, his intentions. Or chapter 11, the Tower of Babel, where people started to build and rely on themselves instead of God. And it continues to progress. But in chapter 12, the call of Abraham really starts to show God's plan on how He would reconcile men to Himself. God makes an agreement with Abraham, the covenant, where He would make him into a great nation. God is going to bless the whole world through Abraham and his descendants, and He's going to reveal Himself to the whole world and establish His presence with men once again that was broken. As you read through the text, you can see why God needed to reveal Himself in the way that He did, why He needed to reveal His presence, why He needed to be back with us in that perfect relationship that was broken. So we start to see the covenant blessing. We start to see obstacles occurring and God's role that He played in them. Look at the story of Sarah. You know, she was old and barren, couldn't have kids. How is this covenant of blessing going to come to pass you know, with Sarah, the wife of Abraham, couldn't produce kids. Or maybe even look at the people being enslaved by Pharaoh, you know, or even before that, Joseph being taken into captivity. All these obstacles, I couldn't imagine that the people were probably in a state of, this isn't the plan that God, this isn't the plan or the hope that we had in God. We were meant to be a great nation. We were meant to rule, not to be enslaved and subdued. But even in the background, God is still working it out. God is still present. God is still revealing himself through different things. The plagues in Egypt, the parting of the Red Sea, the burning bush. God continues to reveal himself to people that they would have him. Now, even in all these obstacles, when we would think that God's plan is out of whack, not going the right way, God is still in control. Joseph being a slave, being in Egypt, ended up saving many because God's hand was still in the midst of it all. And that concludes Genesis. So Joseph is second in command in Egypt, and at the end of the chapter, he passed. He blesses his family. He tells them what's to come, how the people will be treated, but he leaves them with this encouragement: God will be there with you always.